Wake up, wake up! The Eagles are in the NFC Championship game against the Commanders. Can you believe it? We're going to talk about it with the professor, Deniz Selman, your final exam prep, coming up with Zack Baun as well on the PHLY Eagles podcast. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the PHLY Eagles podcast on a Championship Game Friday, presented by Bet365. Download the Bet365 app and use code PHLY365 when you sign up. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. And as we continue to do these shows for you, what can you do for us? Hit the like button, comment below the video, subscribe, all that good stuff, and away we go. We will hear from Zack Baun from the NovaCare Complex in just a little bit. But until then, we get to have a little office hours with the professor himself. Deniz, how you doing?
Doing great. Getting a little nervous, 2 days away.
Okay.
And I think if you're not nervous going into games like this, then what are you a fan for?
So last week it was, I'm going to probably have to go through on Saturday all the explosive plays.
And I did.
From the Rams to make myself nervous because I'm feeling too good.
Yeah.
This week you're feeling already a little nervous, so you're going to need to go the other way.
It's kind of like the different sides of the ball. I think on Washington's offense, I might watch some of their negative plays.
Okay.
And for their defense, I might watch some of their positive plays.
Okay, that makes sense.
Because I think there's just such a big difference between those two sides of the ball with this team. The nerves come a little bit also from reflecting back on how I felt about past NFC Championship games and like the ups and downs that's been. This will be the sixth time that I've been fortunate enough to attend an NFC Championship game, going back to the Tampa Bay game. And I was telling Evren.
So which one did you miss? One?
No, this is the sixth home game.
Oh, the sixth home game.
Yeah. So I was telling Evren how fortunate I am and to have been able to go to all these and all that. I mean, the Eagles have hosted six of these during a time when no other NFC team has hosted more than three.
Okay.
And that's something that, should not be taken for granted. And he loves watching highlights of old games.
Okay.
And so seeing players and the same numbers that are different players and stuff, he loves that. He's like, who's that? And he's like, that's Brian Dawkins, right? He's like, he loves that. And so this week we made it a project to watch the highlights from the first five home NFC Championship games.
Okay.
And I did not realize this would happen, but when Rondé Barber got the pick six, I I just turned into a ball, and I couldn't look, and he had to tap me on the shoulder to make me feel better. And on the flip side, Carolina was similar. On the flip side, when we watched 17, I was just crying, like the flea flicker where Torrey Smith is double covered, and Nick Foles just puts the ball in his hands, and I'm just like, I don't think you understand. Where did that
first
go?
time they threw the ball downfield to Torrey Smith all season long?
Where did that come from? How did Nick Foles just show up to this game and become the best quarterback in NFL history? It was just unbelievable, and I was just and I think everyone thought I wasn't doing okay, I was just and so I was like, okay, I'm good during the game at staying calm, but there's this overarching thing. And the same thing happened to me in the stands last week. I was super calm during every single snap, including they got to the 13. I'm still calm. But once it ended, once that fourth down sailed high, I lost it. I just started screaming like a madman, and I collapsed, and I couldn't move, and as usual, the security had to tell me it's time to leave and all that. So yeah. I'm an emotional wreck is the point. So there
you did not think in that moment to have the wherewithal to gather some snow around you and bring it home?
Man, totally unbelievable lost opportunity. If I knew like an authenticating
black market
firm, I don't know what the hell what was going on. I don't know if we talked about how weird it is that they also like cut out the 50-yard line from the turf from the regular season, and they were having people like take pictures with
weird.
that. Completely bizarre behavior, deranged, really. But yeah, what can you do?
What can you do? What you can do is talk about this game, and let's do that. Let's start, Professor, with the Eagles' defense against the Commanders' offense, because we're going to hear from Zach in a little bit. The reports are that Cam Jurgens and Dallas Goedert were both at practice, but it was an indoor practice, so we'll see.
And I think Dallas Goedert said he was playing.
Yes, and so we'll see, what the temperature is there before we get to that specific side of the matchup. But this is, as you said, the place to be nervous if you are. Well, I guess there's a few places to be nervous, but if you imagine the Eagles losing this game, it's hard to imagine it happening without Jayden Daniels just being a superstar.
Yeah, this is the side of the ball where I'm like, we're going to be fine because the Eagles are awesome, right? Mm-hmm. Whereas the other side of the ball is like, we're going to be fine because Washington's terrible. Right. Like this is the good on good.
But this is the side of the ball where the Eagles can do their job and play pretty well and still lose. That's right. Whereas like on offense, I feel like if the Eagles do their job on offense, they will be fine.
That's probably right. I mean, we saw the Eagles, give up 5 touchdowns to this team, just 5 weeks ago. It was a little different. There were some random plays and there were some things that you'd think wouldn't happen again. But yeah, of course, the way that they're playing right now, Washington, we'll get to that in a second. I mean, they've been lights out in these 2 playoff games. Like they've punted the ball 1 time, and they're also not turning it over. They're scoring at a crazy rate. So yeah, it's going to be scary. Now, the thing that I like about this year and looking at this defense against good offenses that we didn't have 2 years ago with Jonathan Gannon is the trust that the defensive coordinator is going to be able to make adjustments within the game and also throw some curveballs that they might not be expecting. There were a couple of things that I noticed even watching from the stands on Sunday, but also in the film that were really cool. There was a big 3rd down where out of nowhere, Fangio went to a 3-man defensive line and dropped 8. And Stafford's just standing back there, like no one to throw to, gets sacked by Jalen Carter on that play. That was a really cool curveball, I thought. There was a sugaring the A-gaps, like double A-gap, where he actually brought both of them, dropped both edge rushers, and it was man coverage behind it, which is a rare combination. Normally when you're dropping defensive linemen, you're playing zone. That play worked. There was a lot of 6-1 and 5-1, the thing that's like gotten McVay in the past, without subbing. And, Zach asked Fangio about that earlier this week. I might have requested the question, and he said, "Yeah, there's advantages to doing that." And I think we're going to see a lot of that in this game as well. And then this is like kind of geeking out, but Cooper DeJean blitzed the B gap for the first time all year.
Okay.
And there was an edge dropping on the other side. So that's the Fangio exchange known as whip, which he always does with a linebacker and which he always did with Nakobe Dean.
Right?
So cool that he chose to use Cooper DeJean in that role, in that situation. Completely unexpected.
Instead of Warren Burks.
Yeah, I mean, he's blitzed this season, but he always blitzes off the edge. And so that was a kind of cool curveball as well. So those are little curveballs that might not apply directly to the Washington game. It's a different kind of quarterback, obviously, but just things that give you trust that Fangio will have something up his sleeve. And if the game goes a certain way, he won't just keep doing the same thing.
And so these first 2 matchups between these 2 teams, week 11, week 16, how did Fangio approach solving the Jayden Daniels problem? And what are the ways in which he got beat that you think he's going to be focused on correcting this time around?
I mean, you really have to distinguish between the 2 games, right? There was a big difference in how, everyone who likes the Washington team will tell you that Daniels was hurt in that first game. Somehow it's like ignored that Jalen wasn't even playing in the second one. But yeah, I mean, there was a big difference in if you're just going to look at Daniels running the ball. In week 11 at the Link, there were only 3 designed runs for him that went for a total of 3 yards. And only 4 scrambles that went for 15 yards. So completely contained in that sense. He also wasn't throwing the ball to wide receivers, if you recall. He was checking it down the whole game. Week 16, completely different. 4 designed runs for 33 yards. There was that QB trap call where they caught Jalen Carter. They trapped Jalen Carter on a 3rd and 7. And they were able to block like everybody with the trap. And the Eagles were lining the defensive tackles out wide a lot. And they were able to benefit from that and get that and the 29-yard scramble on 4th and 11 was similar to that, where the D tackles were both lined up wide and Daniels was just able to go down the middle. There was a QB lead draw for a first down on the game-winning drive. I mean, like, there were just a bunch of big plays in the game where I think Fangio will look back at that film and say, maybe we shouldn't line up these D tackles this wide on these plays, even though we normally do on pass rush downs and things like that. So I think there will be differences there. Zack Baun mentioned in his presser yesterday that I really like this term, like crush rushing. I know like mush rushing is like used a lot.
Right.
Mush rushing sounds so soft, right? Crush rushing sounds better. Yeah, like you're going to crush where they want to keep him contained. And I hadn't really heard the players use that expression going into the other games. That might be more of a focus, I thought, this time.
Interesting. You mentioned that that loss that happened at it's not FedEx Field anymore, whatever it is.
Yeah, whatever.
The Commander Stadium.
Yeah.
You must appreciate as a season ticket holder 7 home games in 8 weeks.
Unbelievable.
Like,
yeah,
it's got to be the first time in NFL history, right?
It's got to be. Yeah,
unless there was
even
some,
5
like,
in a
something
row
that was displaced or something. Like
even
that,
5 in a row has got to be rare.
Yeah.
Right. Like is 5 in a row. It's only happened 4 times in history that a team has had 3 home playoff games.
Right.
And so the only way there would have ever been 5 in a row is if like
3
you
in a
had
row,
which is it might be the
Possible,
first time.
yeah.
It's been tiring. I've had to revisit the pharmacy for toe warmers as we've had more and more games.
Changing the tires on the bike,
changing the batteries on the radio every game. Because I'm very paranoid that they might not last more than a game. The bike, yeah.
Now, what do you do with the batteries that you've used but may not be totally used up?
So I was just piling them up in a random corner in the living room, and Emily was finally like, "Okay, we can't have this. Like, what is this?" So she put them all in a big sandwich Ziploc and labeled it "once used batteries." So,
I mean, I feel like a missed opportunity here. I mean, those are throw-in batteries.
Yes, that's true. That's true. Now, it does take me.
That's the best way to celebrate a win. Is you take out the batteries, you toss them up in the air. It's like tossing your diploma cap.
Yeah, it already takes me like 10 minutes to get through security because of all my stuff. The binoculars. They're like, "Why do you have so many pens?" But yeah, the loose batteries are not allowed in the stadium. So.
Well, yeah, that's why you throw them up in the air.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
Cliff Kingsbury said that for the first 6 quarters, they dominated us in every facet. And it's a good perspective of the way that those 2 games went. It was really just the second half of the second game where they had the 3 touchdown drives. Now, they did have 2 turnovers even in that half. Yeah. But when you look at it from at the play level, Washington's very worst 2 games of the season by EPA per rush out of 19 games were the 2 against the Eagles.
Okay.
Right. And that's despite those Daniels runs. So, they had 1 run of over 8 yards by a running back in the 2 games on 36 carries.
I was trying to do the exercise of comparing the Commanders' season long stats and rates versus very recently, let's say the last since week 16 or something like that, because the season long stuff will tell you the story about them as a whole, but they're a different team now than they were early in the season. And honestly, it's all pretty similar in terms of the productivity. The one thing that jumped out to me is their designed run rate has really dropped recently. It went from 41% to 32%, and they are really leaning on the drop back game. It seems like of late.
Yeah, if you look at just neutral zone run situations, I'm looking at the wrong thing here. Okay, if you just look at neutral pass rate, especially in the playoffs, we've seen it.
Okay.
We've seen that go down in the playoffs. I think earlier in the season, they were very run heavy, and then they became pass heavy. But if you just look at the 2 playoff games and look at neutral situations, maybe they've gone back. I'm not sure. I don't know if that's
I think they know that, given the way that Jayden Daniels is playing, handing the ball off to Brian Robinson is not necessarily their best path to victory.
Right. And actually, if you're looking at running back runs, maybe that pattern continues into the playoffs because they really have run Daniels a lot on those designed keepers and those kinds of things. If you look at just how good the offense has been, we talked about this a little bit going into the Week 16 game, but just as a refresher, first 9 weeks of the season, they were the best offense in the NFL by a mile. I mean, they were first by a mile by EPA per drive. They were first in DVOA. Like, they were just the best. And then you look at the second half of the regular season, they were just an average offense. I mean, they were 14th by EPA per drive if you just look at those weeks. But if you look at the playoffs, I mean, their numbers are off the charts. I mean, the game in Detroit was their best game since September. And the two games combined, if you just look at those two games, it's way higher than they were even in the first half of the year. For Eagles fans, you can be encouraged that their very worst game of the season by EPA per drive was the one at the Link. And then the one in week 16, even though they scored 36 points, of course, because of the turnovers, was actually their fifth worst, right? And so and it wasn't like super high by success rate or anything either. I think people might want to make the comparison to the way the Lions played against Washington, where it was either touchdown or turnover every drive. On the surface, yes, it was either touchdown or turnover every drive when the Eagles played in Washington. But it was like a turnover on the first play of the drive a lot of the time. Like, it wasn't like the Washington against Detroit, where it was like an 80-yard drive where every play works, and then Jared Goff,
fourth down stop on the opening possession.
Right.
On the I think the first series or the second series that they had. Yeah.
Wait, but we're talking about when Detroit had it, right?
Sorry.
Yeah. Sorry. I was trying to. I'm mixing things here. I'm switching sides of the ball just for the analogy. I think like a lot of Lions fans would say like, we moved the ball. It was just random turnovers. I think they'd be right. Yeah. Whereas I don't think that's true for the Eagles' defense against Washington in Landover. I thought the Eagles' defense played better, and it was like random touchdowns almost. Like Slay running off the field. There's no corner. They get a 50-yard touchdown. They get like 2 long bombs on a play. Like, so I almost think like the last drive was very impressive, the one where they won the game in the end. It was like a bunch of successful plays in a row. But for the most part, that game was like the Eagles getting turnovers early in drives, like just kind of dominating the game, and then, giving up a few random plays. And I don't think those random plays are going to happen. I don't think De'Ami Brown's going to catch a 50-yard pass against Slay again and that kind of thing. So.
No, but I would say one of the concerns is, like, I don't think that one score game record is a thing that's going to hold up super well over time, but like in the snow globe of this season, and knowing that the Eagles have struggled in some of those situations, I think that is like, that's a place where, man, like you don't want to be in that situation. It's almost like the likeliest outcomes for this game are the Eagles win by like 2 touchdowns, or the Commanders win a close one. I don't know.
Maybe, yeah. I mean, I think Eagles win by 2 touchdowns is more likely than Washington wins by 2 touchdowns, for sure.
Well, yeah,
I would say that. Now, in terms of approach, the first game, it was like pretty vanilla from Fangio.
Okay.
Mostly zone, very few snaps of man, and 3 blitzes and 2 exchanges total the whole game. Second game, he kind of went nuts at one point. Like, he just started blitzing. He blitzed 10 times. He had 6 exchanges. And you guys talked about this on a show earlier this week. When he was asked about it, he said the QB was scrambling, 4-man rush wasn't getting there. That's why we blitzed. But for the most part, he got burned by those blitzes. And so I'm very curious how he's going to handle that. Washington plays a lot of empty. In that game, he blitzed about half the time that they played empty, and that long McLaurin touchdown where he beat Quinyon Mitchell, that was an empty snap against a man blitz. And, you're leaving Quinyon on an island there, and he normally doesn't get beat on those, but he kind of guessed on that one. And then the 29-yard scramble on 4th and 11 was also out of empty. And so how are you going to handle, that wasn't a blitz, but it was like, how are you going to handle those empty snaps? So that's something to keep an eye on. They're definitely going to play a lot of empty this game. And I think that that's something where Fangio might approach it a little differently than he did in week 16.
How might you think he does that?
Well, I think that he will start without the blitzing. You know what I mean? Right. Like I don't think he's going to have his first button be like, I'm gonna blitz. There was a lot of man coverage last week against the Rams. Like, I'm curious if he'll do that again. It was kind of a mix in that week 16 game.
Do you see a lot of spies?
No.
No, right?
No. I mean, he didn't do it a single time in either game. So not a single
so who do you think he
where
wants,
I charted it as like a spy.
Who do you think he wants in the middle of the field? Baun or Burks?
Yeah, I think that he is okay enough with Burks being there that he's not going to sacrifice using Baun as an edge.
Okay.
So when Washington lines up with, when they do 12 personnel with 2 tight ends on the same side, which they do a decent amount, I would be shocked if the Eagles aren't in some sort of 5-man line, and you're not going to get to a 5-man line without Zack Baun.
Right.
So, having said that, in this last game, they actually did get to a 5-man line with Cooper DeJean a couple of times and kept 2 behind. So that might be a change. This idea that Cooper DeJean is so versatile that you can think of it when he's on the field as almost being like a 4-3, right? He's a linebacker. And so he can be the guy on the edge instead of Baun. You know what I mean? Like, and the fact that he did that in this last game shows that might happen. But for the most part, it was Oren Burks just by himself in the middle of the field in this last game. Of course, Matt Stafford and Jayden Daniels, very different quarterbacks in terms of scrambling rate. One scrambles less than anyone else, and one scrambles more than anyone else. So maybe it'll be a little different.
More than anyone else and better than anyone else, right?
Yeah, very effective in his scrambling. Technically not as effective as Matt Stafford on a per scramble basis, but yeah.
The other thing that this Commanders offense does a lot is go tempo.
Yes.
And there have been some concerns from Eagles fans about the 2-minute drill defenses against the Eagles have moved the ball a lot this season. And so are you worried at all about tempo against this team?
I'm a little worried that the Eagles are going to be slow at lining up. I feel like it's happened a bunch. I don't know if you noticed in this last game against the Rams, they did it again 2 times coming out of TV timeouts. The Eagles were not lined up against the Rams, just like it happened in LA. I thought it was very funny because they don't go tempo normally, but they sprint to the line on the first play, and the Eagles weren't ready. The defensive tackles' hands weren't on the ground yet. And Washington's is a little bit different than that. They go no huddle. They use nonverbal communication. Quinn talked in his presser earlier this week about how their tempo offense and the fact that they do nonverbal communication will help in a noisy stadium, that it's kind of helped in noisy atmospheres throughout the season, that it helped in Detroit last week, for example. So that's a factor. They have been 73% no huddle in the 2 playoff games, which is higher than their already league leading 60% or whatever it is for the season. To give you a sense of how much of an outlier that is, the Eagles are second in no huddle rate at 30% or something. So it's half of that. So they're the only team that is, Kingsbury's always been kind of that school, the air raid, no huddle and all that. That also links to one of the ways they're able to play no huddle is that they kind of line up in the same place all the time, right? So the guys are able to line up, look at Daniels. Daniels communicates the play through hand signals, and then they run the play. And that, of course, goes back to the discussion we've had about Terry McLaurin and how often he lines up on the left side. And it's not quite as much as it had been earlier in the season. It was 77% of the time in weeks 1 through 11. It's still pretty high. It was 35 on the left and 7 on the right against the Lions. And that means we're going to see the McLaurin against Quinyon Mitchell matchup. It certainly seems like Quinyon Mitchell is healthy enough to play. Right?
I think so. It sounds that way. Yeah. All right. Good stuff. A little bit more on that side of the ball to get to, but let's take a quick break to hear from our sponsors. Start with our friends at Rothman. Rothman Orthopedic. If your joints are aching or your hands are cramping or your back is out of whack, talking to you, Cam Jurgens, Rothman has got you. At Rothman Orthopedics, practicing specialized care has been their passion for over 50 years. Their mission, high quality, compassionate, and affordable care rooted in research. Research that leads to new treatments and better outcomes. Each Rothman doc is laser focused on their specialty. So if it's a hip, a knee, a spine, you name it, they have a team for each body part right in your backyard so you can cross over the defense, drain those jump shots, block those defensive tackles, and root for your teams like no other fans in the country. They're Rothman Orthopedics, and they specialize in you. If you go to Rothman, patients will find the full spectrum of orthopedic care and at Rothman Orthopedics. From diagnosis to discharge, they provide their patients with every service and procedure necessary, such as x-rays, orthotics and bracing, MRIs, physical therapy, and more. It is not just the volume of procedures that they do and patients that they have that Rothman is most proud of. Instead, it is their commitment to improving each of those patients' lives through their service and care. For more than 50 years, Rothman has participated in thousands of groundbreaking research and clinical trials with the goal of advancing knowledge, developing treatments, and improving outcomes for the benefits of new patients. Rothman Orthopedics, specialized in orthopedics and you. Visit rothmanortho.com/PHLY to learn more and make an appointment today. That's ROTHMANORTHO.com/PHLY. And then I'll tell you about our friends, our presenters, Bet365, baby. Because Bet365 has 90 million users worldwide and they live stream over 780,000 events each year with early payout offers across the NBA, NFL, NHL, and MLB. Bet365 pioneered live in-game betting, and today they offer the widest range of games and markets available for live in-game betting across 78 sports. It's the NFC Championship game on Sunday. Last I checked, 6.5 for the Birds. And if things are going well, you get the early payout offers with Bet365. With Bet365, their early payout offers, you're a winner if your team goes up by 17 points with an instant payout on straight bets and parlay selections marked as winners. Download the app and use code PHLY365 when you sign up. Use the code PHLY365, deposit $10 and place a bet for $5 to get $150 in bonus bets if your bet wins or loses. Bonus bets can be used on the spread, totals, player props, futures, and more. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Must be 21 or older and physically located in Pennsylvania. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, call 1-800-GAMBLER. All right, here's my question for you, Deniz. As we bring in our friends with the game ball. That's right. The Xfinity game ball.
Ooh, I've never done one of these.
I want you to tell me who you think on defense is most likely to earn a game ball against Jayden Daniels, Cliff Kingsbury, and the Commanders' offense.
Am I allowed to pick the kind of obvious answer?
Sure.
Jalen Carter.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. With Sam Cosmi out, if any of the reporters in Washington asked questions about football instead of just bringing pom-poms to the press conference, we would maybe know how. Not to talk smack about anyone you might know, but outrageous.
It's a little weird that we don't know who they're. Yeah.
Dan Quinn had a press conference this morning, which I wasted a bunch of my time listening to.
It's a you problem.
In which nobody asked him, who's starting at right guard and right tackle 2 days before the NFC Championship game. I don't know if they're told before the press conference that he's not going to answer that or something, but I have no idea
it's
how that's possible.
It's not like there's an injury situation.
Right. We know the injury situation.
They know what they're doing.
Right. We know the injury situation. Cosmi's out, right? So it's what are you doing instead? And somehow we don't know the answer. Very strange. But in any case, whether it's Andrew Wiley kicking in to play right guard, or it's Trent Scott, who played there for the rest of the game last week, major mismatch against Jalen Carter. They're not going to be able to single Jalen Carter and slide the other way on any kind of regular basis. And that means that you're also going to have a mismatch on the other side with Milton Williams.
Let's have Milton Williams, as he's entering free agency. This is a huge primetime game for Milton Williams to eat up these one-on-one matchups.
Yeah, I don't think Nick Allegretti is the worst left guard in the league or anything like that, but I think that it's fair to call him replacement level. And I think that
as a starter,
and I sure as a starter, and I think Milton Williams is playing really well right now. There have been a lot of snaps where he's had a big impact on the play, even if he doesn't get the sack himself. And I think that whether they mix things up or not, it's going to be a great opportunity for the middle of the defensive line to kind of wreck the game from there.
You're going Jalen Carter. I'm going Milton.
Okay.
Milton Williams is getting my Xfinity game ball, which is proudly brought to you by our friends at Xfinity Mobile. Join the millions who have switched to one of the fastest growing mobile services. You ever said mobile?
I probably have. But it was probably a very weird specific situation. Yeah,
you go finance or finance?
Definitely finance.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
I was watching. If you become a diehard, and now is the time to become a diehard, everybody, because there's a great deal for $48 for the entire year, which is a big old discount. Zach's got a great story up right now on big play Slay entering the emptying of his tank. But I also have a not great story running down a bunch of different nonsense things, including Josh Harris being inducted into the Wrestling Hall of Fame in 2013 in a really dynamic interview that he gives in which he pronounces it finance, which really rankled me.
That sounds worth it right there to become a diehard.
Watching that video, I understood the charisma that has allowed him to become a real champion of industry. I mean, the power squint, like I've never seen.
I love
like
that you've made this Josh Harris week. I hate that guy. Like I've been trying to keep it to the X's and O's and look on the field and all that. But the honest thing,
he's a Wharton man.
I hate. Yeah, I can tell you some other Wharton people that I don't like. But
they put him in the Wrestling Hall of Fame. He quit the team after 1 year.
That's very funny. Hall of Fame, huh?
Yeah, he's. You know what the good to know that you don't read the stories, but he went in as the.
I usually catch up on my reading on the weekend.
The outstanding American is his.
Wow. Okay.
Joining the likes of Congressman Jim Jordan.
That's very funny.
And Billy Baldwin.
That's very funny. The building, when they name these buildings after rich people, I don't know like how long those go for, but the building that my office is in just changed names. And I'm like, what happened to the old rich guy?
The old rich guy, yeah.
Exactly. Like, I mean, obviously he's dead, but money, like, what about his family? Like they must be upset. Yeah. So.
All right. Well, speaking of rich people, let's go to the NovaCare complex. That's right. Zachary Berman for the Locker Room Report, presented by our friends at Valley Forge. If you're looking for a nice getaway, it's Montco, baby. valleyforge.org. The Locker Room Report. There he is. ZB, what's poppin'? Big news day. Give us the scoop.
Yeah, I really enjoyed listening to those past 7 minutes. Those were.
You're not here, dude. We got a show to do.
Relax. So Cam Jurgens practicing today.
Are we supposed to drop mid-conversation, mid-ad read, and bring you on right away?
So Dallas Goedert on the practice field today. Cam Jurgens on the practice field today. That's a positive development for the Eagles. Certainly, you obviously saw that they did not practice the past 2 days. So the fact that they were out there, Dallas Goedert spoke in the locker room after practice, said he was not worried that he wasn't going to play. So I'm expecting Goedert to play. We will see on Jurgens, but the fact that he was out there stretching, I think, is certainly a positive sign. The injury report comes out in about an hour and a half. We'll find out more.
Yeah, I mean, what? I guess I know that Fridays you don't get to see a lot of practice. It's sort of just in and out. I mean, do you have any sense on Jurgens here? Like the guys in the locker room yesterday, it certainly seemed like they were talking like they were going to be without Cam Jurgens, and I do think that it's fair to read into the way that things happened with Nick saying that he was going to be out there and then he wasn't out there. That maybe there was some kind of flare up with the back, but obviously he was out there today. I don't know how. Like, do you have any sense here?
I wish I had a stronger sense. Now, I was speaking to Jalen Carter when Cam Jurgens was in the locker room. My understanding is that he declined to speak with reporters. So there was no clarity coming from his end of this. You sometimes see on the Friday practices, there's gamesmanship, like he's out there at Washington thinking he's going to play. I know that there were players in there who were expecting him to play, citing things such as toughness, we know Cam, that kind of thing. But look, you guys mentioned it well on the show. A back injury for a center in particular is notable. The fact that they had Dickerson in there in practice really jumped out to me. If it was the type of thing where it was just a maintenance day for Jurgens, I think you would have seen Nick Gates there, or you would have seen Brett Toth in there. But the fact that they had Dickerson there, so practicing with your left guard at center on Thursday, which is their most intense practice of the week. Really, they practiced for less than an hour today. They had a walkthrough on Wednesday. So Thursday was really the big practice day of the week for the Eagles. And we weren't there for full team work on Thursday, of course, but reporters saw Dickerson taking snaps before practice. The fact that you would have Dickerson playing center on your most intense practice day of the week led me to think there was a chance that Jurgens wasn't going to play. He was, as I said, he was out there today stretching with the team. I saw him they were practicing at the facility today indoors. They did not go across the street to the stadium. Seeing him walk down from the locker room to the field house, there wasn't any type of impairment with his walk. but I couldn't be able to tell you right now, and that's why this is a critical practice report coming at 4 o'clock today.
Zach, did you get any sense of why they practiced in the bubble today? They've been going over to the link on Fridays the last couple of weeks, right?
Yeah, so they've been having all their practices over at the link the past couple of weeks. My suspicion here, I don't have the full answer. My suspicion is today was probably more comparable to what a walkthrough is. They're probably going through, my guess, third down or let's say red zone today, which you typically see on Fridays. I know from a lot of coaches do first and second down on Wednesday, third down on Thursday, red zone Fridays. But they were probably going through some type of script today. It was a quick practice. They were scheduled to go 12:40 to 1:40, and they were wrapped up by 1:35. So this was pretty quick today.
What about Jalen Hurts, Zach? So much speculation about how mobile he's going to be able to be, how much it's going to affect the Eagles' running game, and obviously the Commanders saying that they're going to hit him. And we'll get to that because I'm going to have to flagellate myself for that. But what's your stance on Jalen Hurts? What are your expectations?
Yeah, so Jalen was asked about that today, about getting hit, and he said every team has their approach. He said regarding his health that, as Nick said, he's improving. He'll defer to what Sirianni said. Now, it struck me, again, I'm playing doctor on the set, that he might be battling a cold or the sniffles, some congestion, however you want to phrase it. Again, not a serious thing. It's like Frank Sinatra has a cold, right? Jalen Hurts has a cold. That's an Esquire reference.
Yeah, I got you.
Okay. Okay. The great Gay
explain the
Talese.
reference.
The great Gay Talese. Someone I admire. I have great admiration for.
Yes, and of course that's who Gay Paul was named after.
No, Gabe Hall. Okay. No. So in any event here, Jalen he seemed locked in. You made the point that Super Bowl week he was loose. You saw him playing pool on Friday. That was not the Jalen I saw in today's press conference. Now look, he doesn't typically do 2 press conferences a week. This might have been one of these things where it's like, let's just get this over with. It's Friday. I want to go home. Or I want to do whatever I have scheduled. So I certainly don't want to project anything. But this was interesting because Jordan Mailata's press conference yesterday, and I'm sure Professor Selman heard this, he was like, Jalen's fired up this week. He's more fired up than usual. And so that was framed to Jalen, and you would think that's like a layup question, right?
And I liked how fired up Mailata was when he was asked about Jalen not getting any props for,
Yeah. And Jalen's like, I think Jordan's more fired up this week, and he's projecting that onto me.
Yeah.
And so that's he's like, this is the same as any other week. I asked him, Saquon Barkley's referred to this it factor about Jalen Hurts, and he's referred to it a few times. And so I asked him if Jalen's heard this, and Jalen says this is something that's been said about him his whole life, and he's like, he can't tell you what it means, but it must be good because people keep using it.
There you go. All right,
Zach. And then spoke to Jalen Carter for a while today.
Okay.
Jalen Carter had some interesting insight, of course, really about Nolan Smith and him and the chemistry that they play with. He referred to a clip that the Eagles put out from this previous game, where like him and Nolan make the adjustment on the stunt, and he said they can just look at each other. That they don't even have to say anything. They can just look at each other, and then they know exactly what they're thinking out there. So he said that goes back to their time.
That's cool.
At Georgia. Yeah, and so he referred to that clip. He was pretty excited about this clip circulating about he hadn't seen it yet, but Aaron Donald saying that Aaron Donald and LaShawn McCoy were talking, and like
Yeah.
Jalen Carter's the next one there. He said that means a lot to him because of Aaron Donald. He wanted to speak to Aaron Donald after the Rams game last year. Didn't get the opportunity to do that. Jalen Carter says that he feels physically good right now. I asked him, does it feel like game 20? He's like, it's the most he's ever played football in his life. He doesn't know what
Yeah.
game it is here. He's like, but he's like, whatever they need from him, he's got it. He says he finds time in between plays sometimes, like to catch his breath. Um, he was asked, and I heard before I came on, Professor Selman was upset at the Washington media for not finding out more about the offensive line situation. He was talking about the backup situation, like he's expecting to be doubled, tripled, whatever it may be. So that's obviously something to pay close attention to. I agree with what Bo's assessment was. This is a huge opportunity, I would think, for Milton Williams. This could strike me as a big Milton Williams game because if you think like Washington they're going to be determined not to let Jalen Carter wreck this game, and it's easier said than done. It's like a team saying we're not going to let Saquon Barkley wreck this game, but Jalen Carter has been a menace to the Commanders before, and I keep pointing to that Thursday night game when as Clinton Hurt told me that that big play Zack Baun made, that was Jalen Carter. Because Jalen Carter made that play at the line of scrimmage, Zack Baun was able to have that fourth down stop. That was one of the few missed fourth downs. And then the last thing, we've all seen this clip of Jalen Carter and lifting up Jayden Daniels from LSU, Alabama. And Jalen Carter, I'm sorry, not LSU, Alabama. Jalen will be offended that I said that. LSU, Georgia. And Jalen Carter said that he sees that clip comes across his screen every single day, he says. And he said, especially now that they play against Jayden Daniels again, but he said not a day goes by when he doesn't see him lifting up Jayden Daniels.
You just accidentally said the Vic Fangio word.
Lifting up. Not a day goes by.
There you go. There you go.
Hey!
There you go. Shock said it first.
Not a day. DAY.
It's okay.
Space. Geo.
Here's the thing, Zach. You can't say you're going to come on at a time, show up earlier than that, and then get offended when you're not on when you get there.
I wasn't offended that I wasn't on at that time. I want to ask you about Darius Slay. Referring to that, I don't like the introductions. Like you always say, like speaking of wet, we're gonna have Zach Berman come on here. It's like stuff like that. Just say Zach's coming on. Like it doesn't have to be speaking of this. Like there's you don't need to connect me to Josh Harrison anyway. So
Zach, were you kicked out of the normal room today?
Oh, good question.
Yeah, you're very observant. If you weren't such an outstanding professor, you could be a reporter.
Well, you don't know how good a professor I am because you never, showed up in any of those classes you said you were going to audit. Yeah,
I do want to audit your class still, absolutely, because I need to become a better professor. But I do know how good a professor you are because I've spoken to students of yours who have literally told me as much.
That's very nice of them,
including No, Corey never had Professor Selman. I asked him that, but he knew of Professor Selman from the Wharton circles. But I've spoken to other people who have been in his class and have remarked that it's their favorite class that they've taken.
A couple things.
But yet, wait, just to answer Professor Selman's question, yes, the great Sal Palantonio is here from ESPN, and I usually steal his room, and he was very nice. He actually offered to let me use it, but he has a hit coming up at like 2:40, 2:45, and I had to make sure that I was here for however long I am. I don't want to say however long I'm needed. However long, I love doing this show. So however long I'm able to.
Sal Pal, this is if the Eagles win 2 more games, there's gonna be a bit of an arms race between the two of you guys. I hope you're gonna beat them to the punch.
No. First off, I have great appreciation and respect for Sal, and I don't think that will that would be a problem.
Speaking of reporters, we got to talk about this. We got to address this. Earlier this week, we were talking about your pet peeves of press conference questions, and you said the thing that actually really bothers you is when people ask a question that has already been asked recently. And during today's press conference, I asked Nick Sirianni about the comments from Washington about them hitting Jalen Hurts like a running back, and framed it about the hit that Frankie Louvu laid on Jalen Hurts the last time they played. And Elliot asked that yesterday. So I gotta jump off the bridge here. I gotta commit seppuku.
First off, please don't jump off the bridge. Number one. Number two,
this is unacceptable.
I'm going to absolve you.
It's unacceptable. I can't be doing that.
I'm going to absolve you here. No, number two, you framed it in a different way based on the chippiness of the game, not necessarily in Joe Witt's comments.
It's the same thing. You got to throw. You got to cast me off the island.
No. Let me still defend you here. Oh, you're the best host in the city. You're hosting a show you were hosting a show yesterday during the press conference.
I know,
right?
but I can read the transcript. I was watching it, and I didn't think about it. I was watching it. I didn't ingest Elliot's question, so I thought that I was covered. But it's a bad job. There's no doubt that's a bad job.
But when you're watching it, well, no, you could have read the transcript. When you're watching it, you can't hear the questions sometimes.
Well, yeah, but then it's my job to make sure that the question hasn't been asked. It's not good.
Okay.
It's not good. This is not NFC Championship caliber performance.
If it makes you feel any better, there hasn't been a single good question asked in any of the Washington press conferences the whole week.
It doesn't make me feel better.
I don't know. So look, I'm not going to defend. I don't know the particulars here. I get criticized sometimes by listeners or questioned by listeners and viewers saying, like, why do you always ask Nick Sirianni injury questions when he doesn't want to answer the questions? And my response to that is because I'm here to report the news. This is the news. Yeah, I can't control what Nick answers. I can't control what I ask.
Get him on the record on things.
Yes. Yeah. So I get this all the time. Like he's not going to answer it. Why do you bring it up? And and the answer to me is because like you just have to ask. You never know, but B, I learned this a long time ago. It's kind of like the Wayne Gretzky quote, or that you miss 100% of the shots you don't take, right? Like if you don't ask the question, you're definitely not getting the answer. So you can't just assume. You can't assume what someone's answer is going to be. You can expect them not to answer it. I would always like for that question to be asked, but I don't know what Dan Quinn's approach to that is. I also don't know if it's something these guys are finding out. I shouldn't say guys; these reporters, men and women, are finding out off camera. But yeah, I'm expecting Trent Scott to be the guy there at guard.
All right, last question for me, Zach.
Oh, so you guys disagree, and that alone is like
yeah. Actually, I expect it to be
indicative of how crazy it is that we don't know.
Yeah. Okay.
My last question, Zach. Got a banger up on the site today. Good time to become a diehard. Darius Slay, probably about to play his last home game as a Philadelphia Eagle. Give us a little tease for that bad boy.
Yeah, I appreciate you asking, Bo. I always like when you can inject institutional knowledge into a story. So when you're kind of summing up or you're writing about the career of a player like Darius Slay, who we've seen the entire career arc in Philadelphia, there's a lot from over the years that you're able to kind of little bits and pieces that you can include in the story. But Christian Parker, and I brought this up last week, Christian Parker put this red gas tank next to Darius Slay's locker. And I spoke to Christian about this, and this was, he always thinks of like nonverbal motivational things he could do. So he put this gas tank up, and on it is a Post-it that literally asks, I'm going to read this verbatim for you. How much gas do you have left in the big play tank? And this was meant for the season and for the career. And Darius Slay, and I appreciate his honesty, was quite forthcoming about the fact that this might be it for him, that this could be his last game playing in Philadelphia. Now, for those who remember, the way his contract structured is there's no guaranteed money beyond this season. He signed a deal that was essentially a 2-year deal. It's a 3-year contract, but essentially a 2-year deal. There's a cap hit because of the deferred years, but the Eagles can get out of this deal beyond this season. They obviously just drafted Cooper DeJean and they drafted Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean. So this is looming. And Darius Slay, he acknowledges that he might not be here, that this could be his last game. He doesn't know if he's going to play next season or not. He says if he plays next season, it will be his final season in the NFL. He won't play beyond year 13. He has kids at home. He says he wants to be back with his family. But the story I tried to capture both the player he is and the teammate he is. Bo did an outstanding piece on Slay back in 2021, which I thought was an important time. And I kind of frame it as Slay came here. He was supposed to be the missing piece. And the way I called it is he was more of a missing piece in 2020. He was not good. And then they bring in this new scheme. There's questions about how he would fit. And he was outstanding in 2021, had a good year in 2022. And for 5 years here, they made the playoffs 4 years. He's been a captain 3 of these years, 2 years in the NFC Championship game, 3-time Pro Bowler during that period. I was surprised when I asked A.J. Brown about him that A.J. Brown called him a Hall of Famer. And I mean, I don't know if he's Hall of Fame caliber. Darius Slay said he thinks he has a toe in there, but he thinks that winning a Super Bowl would certainly help. Since he came into the league, he has more pass breakups than any player in the NFL. I mean, he has been really productive in 2 different places. And I've always described Slay as he's like your favorite teammate, or he's like your favorite player's favorite teammate. In that, I know Slay can be polarizing sometimes in Philly. Like not every fan, he's not as beloved, I think, in the fan base perhaps as some of these other Pro Bowlers that they've had. But in that locker room, he is beloved. Like every corner of that locker room, players at every position, and you've noticed that for a long time. Like Avonte Maddox, I remember saying the best teammate he's had, or the best leader he's ever been around. And I mean, I've spoken to guys from every position group who rave about Slay, and I will also say that when you bring Slay's name up to everybody, the first thing that comes up is they start laughing, which I think says something about a person too, right? Like that, and that personality has really been beneficial for him. So I try to capture that in the story. I hope people check that out now at allphly.com.
Zack Berman, thank you so much.
Thank you very much. I had some other mea culpas that I was going to put in here, but I know we got to get to ad reads. We got to get to Deniz's thing. I'll say real quick, reviewing the shows, reflecting. I'm going to back off my Josh Harris perspective. I think that I was trying to speak to what makes a good owner, but I think the nuance of this situation, I think it's absolutely understandable and probably appropriate for Eagles fans and for Philly fans to feel like he doesn't care about this fan base. I hope, I don't think I conveyed that enough on the show the other day, because I do hear what you're like. It's a bad look owning the Devils and the Commanders. I stand by what I said about you have to buy the teams that are for sale if you want to buy a team, but you also have to understand who your customers are. And I think that it is a slap in the face to the customers that he has. If it happens once, it's a coincidence. If it happens twice, it's a trend, right? So I think that's a bad look that it's 2 of those teams. If it was just one, it'd be different. That's why I want to put that out there. I didn't feel like that came off particularly well.
Zach, I have a bit of a return serve here.
Oh, okay.
And that is our Nick Sirianni conversation from yesterday. I was thinking about, and I was thinking about the way that we framed Saquon and Zack Baun. Like you didn't know that you weren't sure that they could be this good until they were put in these situations. I think if you're making the Sirianni case, you could make I was arguing that the Eagles had to put all of this infrastructure around him for him to be successful. And maybe it's the case that they found the right way to get the most out of Nick Sirianni by putting him in this box, and this is the best place for him to be the fullest version of himself.
I mean, it's also, don't you think that's the way the organization just is? I mean, that's kind of how they were with Doug Peterson as well.
It's not how it was last year.
Right. Oh, I see what you mean.
Yeah, I mean, I recognize that Nick Sirianni has his faults. I also recognize this is a league that gives Liam Cohen the keys to the kingdom.
I know,
Name
it's
your
so
price,
stupid.
pick your GM.
This is
right?
the perfect. This Liam Cohen thing is the perfect NFL story because all three sides come out looking like jabronis. Like the Jaguars look like a joke of an organization for the way that they brought Balky in and then let him go because they weren't going to get Liam Cohen. Liam Cohen looks like a jabron for the way that he handled the obfuscation. And to me, the biggest losers in all of this are the Bucs and the way that they are like frantically texting every national reporter to just whine and complain that they can't get a hold of Liam Cohen.
I'm saying, like, I like the Bucs offense this year. I remember talking about them before the Eagles-Bucs game. But I also think, like, you don't need to turn around your organization for this guy. And so I think sometimes, like, there's not a full appreciation for, 3 seasons of double-digit wins, 2 years of 14 wins, 2 NFC Championship game appearances. Like, even if you're not the best play caller, or even if you're not the play caller, and you might do things differently from a game management perspective. It's hard to win games in the league. So I give him credit there, and I will ask Deniz one question, and then as they say in talk radio,
we do now have to go to the ads. We got to get it in.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, yeah. So I want to ask Deniz the question after the ads.
Oh, you're gonna stay? Oh, okay.
Or I can just ask it real quick.
Ask the question, okay? And then on the other side of the ad break, Deniz will answer the question. It's what we call a tease.
Exactly. That's what I was going to say. I'll hang up and listen. Okay. You're doing a game where you're doing a contest. Name as many players from the 2017 team as you can in 30 seconds. Okay. And I don't think twice about this. I'm just like, sure, whatever you need, I'm happy to do it. And then you're told before that you have to use first names and last names. Is there strategy behind inserting the first name and the last name, and then also saying that the IR players don't count? So I will hang up and listen.
It's ridiculous. It's not strategy. It's just you're naming the players. You have to name their names.
Okay.
All right.
I
Zack
think
Baun,
I
love you.
Yeah.
Thanks. Great seeing you guys. I'll see you on Sunday.
He won't say it back. All right. A quick ad reads. Let's talk about our friends at Ace Hardware Home Services. I've already told the story. They really helped me out last week or 2 weeks ago with the water heater situation. Same day service, and fixed it. Because with Ace Hardware Home Services, what they bring is experience. Local plumbers and techs who handle everything from repairs and seasonal maintenance to installation and upgrades. They bring understanding. We listen to your goals, and the job isn't complete until you are satisfied, and they bring helpful to your home so you can spend more of your time on the projects that really matter. Visit Ace Hardware Home Services online at www.acehardwarehomeservices.com to get started on your next project. And then I'll tell you about our friends at Ice Shaker, because if you're looking for a place to keep your snow and not have to pay $50 for it, Ice Shaker might be the place to do it. Let me get one real quick. Check out this bad boy. Heavy piece of machinery. You know it's well made. And look, you got the Eagles logo on there. It's the perfect gift for the passionate sports fan in your life. Created and used by the Gronkowski brothers, Ice Shakers has sold over 1 million bottles. They have changed the game with workout bottles, and this is the bottle you've been looking for. Go to iceshaker.com and use the code ALLCITY25 at checkout to save 25% on your order. Kitchen-grade stainless steel bottles that don't absorb odor like the plastic bottles do. There's a patented twist in the agitator that breaks up powders but is silent when you shake it. Instead of that annoying ball, the agitator works as a strainer as well and makes it a very solid tailgating cup to mix drinks. Order your team-branded bottles today at iceshaker.com and use the code ALLCITY25 for 25% off your order. Ice Shakers, show your support for your teams with the best branded workout bottles on the market, Ice Shakers. All right, Deniz, if I asked you to name as many players from the 2017 team as possible, would you say Foles, Sudfeld, Clement, or would you say their full names?
It probably depends on the player, but I'd mostly go full names. Yeah.
Of course. They have names. They have full names. You say their names.
Zach was trying to do Jeopardy rules where you don't have to say
I don't know why he assumed that would be the case.
Okay.
But yeah, there's no.
I mean, it's a good time saver if you've got the 30-second limit.
Well, yeah, but there's no strategy involved. I'm trying to just play the game as it's meant to be played.
Right.
Now, I am upset that Zach's is the only one that's up on Instagram. I'd like to see how mine matched up. I think I might have nipped him, but I'm not the star.
Without a time limit, can you name all 53?
I think I could.
Yeah, I think I could. I think I could too, but I don't want to. Yeah, I think I could.
The classic one who would typically be the last one thought of would be Will Beatty.
Probably. Or Destiny Vaya, maybe.
Destiny Vaya.
Yeah.
Played several snaps down the stretch.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Of course, not Destiny Vaya, not Destiny Vuao.
And that would be a really weird one to not say the first name.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Thanks for watching on TV, all of you who are doing that on Fast. You can go to allphly.com to check out the rest of this episode. We're going to get into the Eagles offense against the Commanders defense. But first, let's run through the super chats that we have. Mikey Phased says the agitator is Bo's WWE name. Not bad. Not bad. Caleb Duncan, will ZB put the 2 feet in the pink slippers if the Eagles win? Good question. I think we could convince him to do that. Maybe I can get him to bring him to Nolans. Brian Backer, bigger effect on Sunday, Bryce Huff or Josh Huff? What do you think?
Probably Josh Huff, somehow.
Somehow, I agree. Bob Ryan double dips and gives us a rumor. Says Jeffrey Lurie has been seen filling pint containers of snow to pay for Matt Patricia's return as passing game consultant. Please have ZB follow up at the next presser. Tough. Patricia's got to go back to New England, right? Or is he in Carolina with Belichick?
You'd assume he just follows him around everywhere, was my understanding. But I don't actually know. I don't know.
I thought it was funny that Brady is hiring Pete Carroll. His continued poking and passive-aggressive pettiness at Belichick continues.
That's right. Well, yeah. He has, what was I going to say? Oh, he hired a guy named Spytech, which is an unbelievable, little bit too on the nose for Brady, yeah. I don't know how involved he is in those meetings, but they probably said, we're looking at investing in some spy tech. And he said, yeah, it's good. It's a good idea.
There you go.
A little too easy, maybe.
Finally, Musa. Thank you, Musa, who says, Bo's new article for Diehards is very, very good. I mean, I wouldn't go that far, but thank you. I mean, the Deniz hasn't read it, so how
I
could it be?
Catch up on my reading of non-X's and O's things on Saturday. Like, some of us have a routine, and we follow the routine. You got to treat the NFC Championship game the same way you treat Week 10, as you know. So
I was happy, actually, now I can add the squint as a part of my Josh Harris impression, so that's good.
It really is very good. I should mention, before we get into the other side of the ball or whatever we're doing next, that I hate this Washington team. Like, I hate it so much. I went to middle school
just the organization in general.
Well, and the fans and everything. Like, I went to middle school and high school in Northern Virginia. And so I was amongst a bunch of Washington fans. And I've been getting a lot of texts from them this week. And,
Flex.
They're super excited and all that. And it's actually a good chance for me to explain to Evren how he should not take this for granted. I'm like, my friends were 13 years old the last time they saw an NFC Championship game, and now they're all 46 years old. And so, like, just think about how much of their lives has been spent in misery. But yeah, I mean, just so they know, and I'm talking to you, Baby Cronenberg and Satlin and Shula and all you people. It's going to be a bunch more misery.
What a traitor Shula is, growing up then and not rooting for the Dolphins.
Spelled differently, but actually listener of the show regularly. So, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I'm going to leave the Commanders alone. I have some thoughts there too, but
whatever. We know the history of the organization. They still play the same song and pretend that their fans don't sing the same words. I mean, come on, give me a break. So, if it makes Eagles fans feel better, the Lions had a ridiculous approach to them, and I don't think we're going to see anything like that. I mean, they were blitzing like crazy. They were rushing 6, and I mean, like, Aaron Glenn doesn't seem to know that you're allowed to use the nickel corner to cover somebody. Like he doesn't have to blitz on every single
that guy
play.
could do it.
I mean, he's like one of the best nickel corners in the league.
Yeah.
And he's just having him blitz every play, and the blitz wasn't getting there, and there were guys just running wide open. I don't think that kind of stuff's going to happen. So,
all right, let's flip sides of the ball.
Yeah.
The Eagles offense.
I think one way to flip might be the segue with the Daniels versus Jalen Hurts.
Let's do it. Those are the
non-charts.
The graphics I sent you ahead of time, Julia.
This is this kind of is about both offenses. We've talked about Jalen Hurts' non-targets before, how he has a very high rate of that.
Not a violation at all. That question about selling the ticket, not at all. Guy says he sold his ticket to the game for $1,300. He's still going to the game. Is that a violation?
Oh,
I say
no.
not at all.
Still going to the game.
That's
Like,
good
why would
business,
it be a violation?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine.
No, I guess the concern would be if it's to a Commanders fan. But
No. It's like, so Jalen Hurts and Jayden Daniels had the two highest rates of dropbacks resulting in non-targets on the season. And when you look at their overall efficiency, they're when they do throw the ball, Jalen Hurts has had a much higher EPA per dropback than Jayden Daniels, which might be surprising to some people. He doesn't throw the ball as often, but when he does, he's been more efficient. But when you look at their overall EPA per dropback, they're about the same. They're almost tied. And the reason is that when they don't target a receiver, Jayden Daniels has been not as costly to his team. And the reason is they've got sacked basically the same rate. Both got sacked around 10% of the time. But the big difference was that Daniels had far more productive scrambles and far fewer throwaways. So, and when you watch Jalen Hurts and you watch Jayden Daniels, that's something that you'll note, that Daniels doesn't throw the ball away nearly as much as Jalen Hurts does. In the playoffs, it's become even more pronounced in that Daniels has eliminated the sacks, right? So, Julia, if you look at the, I guess there are two. There's one with from the regular season, yeah.
which one do you want first? Regular
season first,
okay.
Just to put it in context, how often these two quarterbacks end up not targeting a receiver on a dropback. Both of them are close to a quarter of the time, and you can see from the chart that they're the two highest in this category. And just to be clear, not targeting a receiver means when you're dropping back, you are either sacked, you throw the ball away, or you scramble. Right, and the blue there is sacks, and so you can see they got sacked at around the same rate. But then you can see a difference between the orange, which is throwaways. Daniels had fewer than half as many as Jalen Hurts. And then the scrambles that's the red part of the bar. Jayden Daniels had a lot more scrambles. Both quarterbacks were very good when they scrambled, but the higher number of scrambles for Daniels made him more efficient when he didn't target a receiver. If you switch to the playoff graph, Julia, the biggest difference between the regular season and the playoffs for these two quarterbacks is the sack rate. Jayden Daniels has been sacked once in 2 games. He's been sacked less than any other quarterback in the playoffs, including the ones that only played 1 game and got eliminated. Whereas Jalen Hurts has gone in the opposite direction. He's been sacked on 18% of his dropbacks. And strangely, in this last game, we talked about how he got sacked 7 times. Under-discussed. 0 throwaways in the game. When the entire stadium is yelling, throw it away, and he just takes a sack. It's crazy to have a game with 7 sacks and no throwaways. Normally when there's 7 sacks, you also threw it away a few times because the pressure was just getting there the whole time. So this is more maybe descriptive than anything else, but this is how it's been going in the playoffs.
Game theory wise, on the last offensive drive when he's rolling out left, would you have preferred he throw that away? Yes. You lose clock, but you still get 3rd and 7 or whatever it is?
Yeah, and I thought about that on right then. I was upset that he took the sack, and I still am, because it's going to be 3rd and 7, and you're going to have a chance to get the first down still. Right. You're giving up that chance completely by taking the sack, because they're going to run it on 3rd and 19 or whatever. So
of course. Yeah.
So you've got a chance of not giving them the ball back is gone.
But the downside is you're giving them the ball back with 1:40 left and their timeouts.
But they had the time. It made a difference in how many timeouts they had left.
That is one
where there was enough time.
That is the only one where I feel like that is what he was coached to do. I'm sure, I would imagine that in that scenario he was told you're better off taking a sack.
Especially when you're calling a boot that, where that could happen. Yeah. No, maybe. I mean, look, I haven't been a big Kellen Moore fan. I thought this was just a horrendous Kellen Moore game, the Rams game, just awful. I mean, the safety, you're for the first time all year, it occurs to you that you can run deep routes when your quarterback is throwing the ball in a hobbled knee from the middle of his own end zone, and the 3 first reads are 40 yards down the field. I mean, I don't know if you saw all 22 of that play, but the guys are running to the 40-yard line.
Yeah.
Jalen's reading that. It looks terrible on TV because it looks like Dallas Goedert's right there.
Right.
But if he's coached to first read the play downfield, then Gallimore beats Cam Jurgens way too quickly for him to get to the check down. And so it makes him look terrible because Dallas is like wide open. But the play is not designed to be checked down there. It's just an awful, awful play call.
I know it's not designed. And I am not absolving the play call. It's a terrible play call there.
Yeah.
I still think that in that situation, the quarterback has to have in his mind, if I'm in the end zone, I know where my check down is. I can at least fake throw the ball. Because even if it's called grounding, you still get a safety.
I think there's a difference between a quarterback who's used to quick pressure and one who's used to his offensive line being awesome and his center his Pro Bowl center not getting beaten so quickly, by a guy. So, are you a little bit worried about a slight downturn from the offensive line last week, or you chalk it up to the snow? Yeah, it's hard to say. There were some plays where they were getting great push in the run game when the D tackles were sliding back, and there were others where they weren't able to react to the games because they were sliding. And so, I don't know. It wasn't a good game by the offensive line. It wasn't a good game by Dallas Goedert in the run game either. And there was one split zone run where he was coming across to block the defensive end, and he just shied away from the contact, which I've never seen him do. And the defensive end made the stop on the play. And I was like, whoa, is that that looked like CJ Uzomah there, right? And I'm wondering if Cam Jurgens and Dallas Goedert were already both injured for parts of the game. I don't know. I don't know. It's hard to pinpoint when it happened, but it was not a good game for the offensive line. And the Eagles' run game, I mean, we look at the Saquon runs, which obviously were the difference in the game, but from a success rate perspective, especially in the second half, there were only 3 successful runs in the second half, 3 for 15. I mean, it was not pretty. And one of the stylistic differences in the run game after Jalen got hurt, and I was going to ask you about this, the Eagles were in pistol on 4 of the first 46 snaps. That was before the injury. After the injury, 9 of the last 18. So it's going up from 9% to 50%. And you could ask, who cares? Pistol, shotgun, what's the difference? Well, the difference is when the Eagles run inside zone from pistol, and they did it 6 times after the injury, there's no read element. So you're not taking away a player that you don't have to block. And so the tight end is blocking the backside edge. Okay. You've basically got one fewer guy to block, and they were absolutely selling out to stop the run. And so it's not surprising that those plays mostly didn't work. Now, of course, you've got the 78-yarder where everything worked out perfectly against the way they were lined up. But that's the thing. It's going to be feast or famine on that. And I know running the ball is considered a conservative approach, but it's almost very high variance. It's like you're hoping for the home run, right? Yeah. But if you don't get it, you've got a lot of unsuccessful plays in a row.
Now, I do think that they would think that in this game, despite the fact that the 6 of the 8 quarters or whatever, they've been the Commanders' defense has been pretty good against the Eagles' rushing attack, that they're going to be able to get 5 yards a pop at a higher clip than they did last week. But the pistol thing is interesting because, to your point, it's if you go to pistol, you're waving the white flag on we don't want Jalen to run the ball.
You're making it obvious that they're not going to do it.
So you're taking away the guess of it. And I would imagine that they're not going to start that way. Or it's the thing we talked about before, the rope-a-dope. Maybe you start that way in pistol, get them to suck it in, and then you want Jalen to keep one later. But
maybe. I mean, for what it's worth, the 78-yarder was not pistol. In fact, they were talking about what side Saquon should be on. Yeah. It also wasn't a read. It was a split zone. But I mean, I think I agree with you that Jalen will tell the coaching staff, it doesn't matter. My knee doesn't matter. Call the game.
It's the NFC Championship
as if
game,
I can run.
It's like the Mahomes injury from 2 years ago. Listen, easy for me to say. It's not my body, but
sure.
I think we know that the way that Jalen is wired, he's not going to be don't call this because it might hurt me. I think he wants to run the stuff that they run.
Right. Now, when it comes to the Eagles running the ball in this game, which is going to be the main thing that the Eagles will try to do in this game, it's worth noting that the 32% rushing success in Week 16 was the very worst of the season by the starters, right? Other than that last Giants game. 11 successful runs the whole game. Now, Jalen didn't play for most of the game, and that might have been part of the reason. There are certain runs where you're not going to trust. You don't have to worry about Kenny Pickett running the ball. There was that counter run for a touchdown in the first quarter, the 68-yarder by Saquon, and it involved Grant Calcaterra on the front side climbing to Bobby Wagner and blocking him. Kelsey talked about this on the radio this week. He said, I watched the film of that game. Bobby Wagner made an adjustment, and he was not going to get blocked by that tight end again. And sure enough, like I went back and watched the film after I heard that. And Bobby Wagner is like making Calcaterra whiff on that same run over and over again after that. And that counter run like didn't work again in the game. Lane Johnson said that they didn't make the right adjustments to the things that they did. So I'm sure like they've been in the room like working on those things. And Jordan Mailata was particularly upset because if you remember, Reed Blankenship got an interception, which should have ended the game at the end.
Right.
But then the Eagles went 3 and field goal. Like it was like a 3 and, instead of getting that first down.
Right. That was like, and that was the thing. Like they made the play to win the game. And then,
Right. And the biggest problem on that, obviously Devontae Smith's drop is the biggest play, but on first down on that 3 and field goal, they lost 3 yards on a counter run. And it was Jordan Mailata getting beat by Johnny Newton on the backside. And he was very upset about that. He was asked in his presser yesterday what play he was upset about. And he said he didn't remember, but that was the one. I remember he said after the game, he said, we miscommunicated. We didn't get it right. I think this Eagles offensive line and Jeff Stoutland are very proud of how good they are at this stuff. And they are going to be all over this Washington defense. Like, I think they should be able to run all over them.
The uncertainty of who's going to play comes into play.
I know, but I mean, just this Washington defense has been terrible, like against the run, just awful. And to give you a sense of that, I think there's this kind of weird narrative around this Washington defense that they have been better of late because they got the turnovers. But when you look at them by success rate and by things that are sustainable in any way, I mean, the Tampa Bay game was like a defense optional game. I mean, both teams were driving up and down the field. It was a 70th percentile game for Tampa Bay by EPA per drive, success rate, and everything. Detroit was even better. You might say Detroit's offense turned the ball over, but it was a 74th percentile game by EPA per drive, despite the turnovers. It was 98th percentile by success rate, one of the highest success rates of the year for any offense, and 100th percentile by EPA per rush. Now, this basically what I'm saying is if it weren't for the turnovers, it would have been like a historically terrible performance, and you could say like other than that, Mrs. Lincoln or whatever, but I don't think turnovers are something that you can just expect to happen again. Jalen Hurts is not going to throw the ball to the cover 2 safety like Jared Goff did for no reason. Like, Jalen Hurts isn't throwing that ball. And so to use our baseball analogy, where stops on series are like a batting average, Washington has been giving up 81% of their series for first downs on defense. So they're batting 190 on defense, exactly. And and the home runs are the turnovers. So they've been getting home runs, or they've been striking out.
And Jack Cust of a defense.
There you go. Yeah, exactly. And so, I don't know. I mean, Joe Witt can talk about how they're going to hit Jalen and all that kind of stuff. But I actually find
the Joe Witt stuff to be like incredible loser energy.
Oh, I fully agree. I fully agree.
About
being
how hard
acting all tough and like, if they want to expose the quarterback,
go play
come on, man.
Yeah,
like as if like every NFL game doesn't involve the defense wanting to hit the quarterback. Like you're acting as if like there's something.
And he puts on the coordinator too. It's like if their coordinator decides that he's going to run, like who's going to pay?
Yeah, exactly.
Go fight Kellen Moore, dude.
Yeah, no, it's no. I think that we can expect some fireworks on both sides of the ball, but maybe more on this side of the ball than last time. Last time the fireworks were on the other side. It was like De'Ami Brown and CJ GJ getting into it. I don't think the Eagles' offensive line is going to be just forgetting what Frankie Louvu did to Jalen in that game. He's a bit of a headhunter
I
in general.
actually think that it will be even more pronounced if Landon Dickerson has to play center, because I think he's the guy most likely to get really into it. And like I feel like if he's the center, it'll be even more. Yeah.
I feel like even when he's not making the calls, like he's on the film, like he's the most, his arms are waving all over the place and everything. I think he would, and Lane Johnson was joking about how he looks like a conductor when he's the center. It would be very funny to see, like, I mean, I hope Cam plays, but it would be very funny if Landon Dickerson is out there just like going crazy before every play. Yeah.
The other thing you have on here from this matchup is that the Commanders were blitzing a ton. And do you think that they're going to do that again?
Yeah, I actually do think that they will. They haven't been blitzing much in these playoffs, so they're like 17% blitz or something. But Baker Mayfield and Jared Goff are obviously very different quarterbacks. Those are very different offenses than what the Eagles do. In Week 11, they blitzed 16 times. Frankie Louvu lines up as a defensive end on third downs. Take those out. He blitzed 10 times when he wasn't lined up as a defensive end. So, like, just on early downs, he blitzed 10 times. He was unblocked a few times. They also had blitzes from Wagner, the nickel. They had a safety blitz. And the Eagles did not do well against the blitz at all at first, and then recovered and had some big plays later. I would think that their approach in this game will be heavier blitz than we've seen from them in the playoffs so far. And also, I expect them to play a lot more man coverage and to have Marshawn Lattimore travel with AJ. And the reason I say that is because that's what they did in Week 16. If you recall, Week 11, they didn't have Lattimore yet. St. Just was playing. They played a lot of zone in that game. St. Just.
Benjamin St. Just.
They also have Javonte Jean-Baptiste. So it's fun. So the approach, I think, will be let Lattimore travel with AJ. They didn't have Lattimore travel in either of the two playoff games. He stayed on... Okay. So Lattimore has been playing on the right side, and Sanders still has been playing on the left side. Dan Quinn talked about that earlier this week, and he said that about the Lions, he said they do so much motion that we didn't want to be chasing guys.
Makes sense, okay.
And so we just decided to stay on sides. The Eagles, of course, don't do nearly as much motion, and so I would expect that it'll be more like in Week 16.
With Lattimore, if the Eagles get into a 3rd and long situation, do you think that they should bring in Kenny Pickett so that they
just
can finally
get the pass interference?
Yeah,
absolutely. Kenny Pickett for the season, 3 pass interferences drawn. Jalen Hurts still at 1. kind of unbelievable, and all 3 on Lattimore. Yeah. This defense is interesting. I don't think they're good, but I do think they try interesting things that other defenses don't try, and one of them is
being dirty.
Being dirty for sure. That other defenses sometimes try that too, but they will use their personnel in a more interesting way than other teams do. So, for example, when the Eagles were in 13 personnel in that game, and they did the same thing against the Lions, they'll take off one of the corners, and they'll play with 3 safeties and 1 corner in base, which very few teams do that. Like, most teams just automatically leave 2 corners on the field. And then when the Eagles were in 11 on early downs, one of the things they did, and I'm going to look for this in this game, I'm sure it'll come up early in the game. One of the things that they did is they would play base so that they would have big bodies in the box. So they would have 4 defensive linemen and 3 off-ball linebackers. But because there are 3 wide receivers on the field, they would still play with 3 corners, and they would take Jeremy Chin off the field.
Okay.
So, look, this is like, in the weed stuff, but it's like it shows that they, in that game, were willing to play base, cover Grant Calcaterra with a linebacker if needed, and make sure they had the corners to cover the wide receivers. The one thing that could change that is that Dallas Goedert,
I was going to say, your boy, the MVP.
Dallas Goedert could be in the passing game a mismatch in that sense. So they might abandon that package. So that's one of the things I'll look for. We're talking like 4 or 5 snaps a game. This isn't like the fabric of the game or anything. But sometimes on a key down, that could be a difference. So.
Okay. What's your temperature check here? You feel good about this matchup, or you're
again? I feel so good about the Eagles when Washington has the ball, and I feel very good about Washington's defense being bad when the Eagles have the ball. Of the 100 offenses to make it to the championship game, NFC or AFC, in the true media era since 2000, this Eagles offense ranks 95th so far in EPA per dropback, 94th in overall success rate.
Really?
They are trying to become the 2015 Broncos. They're the only team to win the Super Bowl with numbers that are comparable. So now look, it's only been 2 playoff games, and there are 2 more. And maybe
this is just playoff performance.
This is just in the playoffs. No. Regular season, this offense was fine. And that's the other thing. By the series conversion rate numbers for the 2 playoff games, 2 lowest of the season for the Eagles out of the 19 games, including the game with the backups and everything. So, I mean, this has not been once the playoffs come, they're going to turn it on.
Rates are going to be lower when you have 3 touchdowns of 40-plus yards early in drives.
That's true, because they only get one conversion on that. Right. So it's kind of like the Washington defense version of offense, right? It's like it's going to be when the Eagles have the ball, it's going to be two units that have been really bad on a play-by-play basis, but have been hitting home runs.
Yeah.
And it's going to be which one hits the home runs. It's the ultimate Sirianni double positive game, right? Like it's like don't turn it over and get explosive plays. And that's exactly what this offense has been doing. And then the Washington defense has been getting the turnovers. And so that'll be I guess something will have to give, or maybe there will be some of both. I don't know. The four teams that are alive have not turned the ball over a single time in the playoffs. That's 7 games of 0 turnovers,
and each of them has a member of the 2017 Eagles on their active roster.
Ooh. Oh man. Now you're gonna. Okay. I mean Zach Ertz, obviously.
Correct.
Oh man, this should be easy, right? A member of the 2017 Eagles on the active roster.
On the active roster.
I should know. Rasul Douglas.
Correct. Actually, the Bills have 2.
Okay. Do I have to get the second one?
You
or
don't
is
have
that...
to, no.
Okay. Rasul Douglas. And who am I missing? The Chiefs.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, no. This is probably not great entertainment.
Mac Hollins is the other Bill.
Oh, yeah. Okay, yeah. I should have known that. And then on the Chiefs. Oh, no.
Oh, how dare you.
This is really bad. It's like a Bo Wulf favorite? Or no?
No.
Okay. Oh, man. Side of the ball?
He's a quarterback.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Sorry. I'm sorry.
No, he wasn't active in the Super Bowl, but he is a member of the 2017 Eagles.
Yes.
How you feeling about this uniform?
Did you see the game he played?
I actually didn't.
It was
really
very funny.
Okay.
Yeah, it was very funny. Yeah.
Got the Broncos into the playoffs.
The Eagles like winning so many games at home in a row has kind of killed my midnight green on white.
That's good.
Yeah, which is good. I mean, up to like 21-15 or something, which isn't even that bad a record.
Okay.
So, yeah, the midnight green on white is on a huge win streak.
Okay.
I would like to see the Black Sox, but we're probably not going to see the Black Sox, so I'll give up on it.
Any other little bits of minutia that are on your mind for this matchup?
I think it's interesting when you step back and think about how under center play action and motion and all these kind of trendy things that we talked about. And all those teams are sitting at home, right? You've got the Rams, the Lions, the Packers, like all these heavy under center play action teams. And you've got 2 teams that are 30th and 31st in under center play action in the NFC Championship game. Gun run, quarterback +1 run game with very little motion as well. Both teams are in the bottom quarter of motion. So people tend to overreact in the NFL to like which team succeeded. I mean, this game could easily have been Rams Lions, and then it would be like, the under center teams got there. But I thought it was kind of interesting that stylistically we're moving away from that Shanahan McVay thing.
To me, there's like if we get there, if it's Eagles Chiefs. I like the framing of the Chiefs have clearly established themselves. They are the best football team in modern NFL history. Nobody can beat them in playing modern football. And so here come the Eagles, who are trying to play throwback 1980s football, and maybe this is the only way to beat them.
Yeah, no, it's very good. I mean, it really is throwback 1980s, 1990s football. You were talking about cowards draws earlier.
Yeah.
It occurred to me that Saquon 68 or the 62-yard touchdown, the first long one?
The first one,
yeah, was on a 3rd and 4, which and I don't think did you even think about how that was on 3rd and 4? Like it's so normal for the Eagles to run it on 3rd and 4 now that we don't even say like, oh my God, why are they running it? And if you look at that play, it was actually exactly the kind of play that Sirianni will point to and say, this is why we run on 3rd down. They overloaded the front so that there were 3 D linemen on one side and only 1 D lineman on the right side. Jalen checked into the play, if you recall. And you have Cam Jurgens.
Which I like that one because they had Well, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Well, I like that they had the 3 receivers left. This was the one where the Rams also had their stacked defensive line with the big guys on one side, and so it was the perfect call for that situation. It was once you beat one guy, he's got a free reign.
The Eagles are second in the league at 2x2 sets. By the way, this was one of the things we talked about last year. It's continued that way. That was the first 3x1 on that drive, and it was the one to the boundary. He changes the play to a run towards the boundary at a bunch of little guys. Byron Young was the only D lineman on that side. He was blocked by the MVP of the running game, Dallas Goedert. Now, you look at the 3 offensive linemen on that side, they all blocked little guys. Lane Johnson blocked Kobe Durant on the play, which is very funny, a cornerback. You've got Cam Jurgens blocking a safety, and you have Mekhi Becton just destroying Christian Roseboom. And on the mic'd up, they're asking each other, did we all pancake somebody on that play? And it's like, well, yeah, you're blocking little kids, you know. But I thought it was really funny that, like, that's such a good example of this is why they run the ball on third down.
Yeah.
If you're going to have these exotic fronts to try to run stunts or whatever you're doing on 3rd and 4, that's not going to fly. And of course, you'd hope that would also help the pass game because it'll discourage defensive coordinators from optimizing for pass rush if you don't think they might not even pass it. So.
Some game notes here to run by you. Let me know how you feel here. Now, honorary captain of the game.
Oh man, here you go. You got the. I don't know if you can see this.
It's going to be Nick Foles. Will be the Eagles' honorary captain for this game. So they're going to the well for that one. Yeah. Halftime last week was the Frisbee Dogs. This week, Armani White will play a medley of hits at halftime. And then this is the one that's on my radar because 2 weeks ago, wild card round, you had Vanya Sachs knocking it out with the sax.
And the doctor last week.
The anthem. Last week, Dr. Jesse McGuire.
Yeah.
We've gone instrumental the first 2 games. Do you go back to it? The Eagles are not. They are going away from the instruments, and they are going to Philadelphia native Mary Kate Morrissey, who is currently starring as Elphaba in the hit Broadway musical Wicked. She's going to sing it. I don't know. I wouldn't mess with success. Dance with the girl who brought you.
Do you expect the vibes pregame to be anything close to 2017?
No, because they don't have a song.
That's a good point.
They don't have a rallying cry song like that.
How disturbing was it to learn that Howie Roseman has a say in the locker room? I
agree. He doesn't have his hands in enough in the organization. He's got to take on that too.
No, I do enjoy that after every first touchdown of the game, they play This Is Howie Roseman. This is Howie Roseman. Yeah. No, that's good.
Yeah, so he asked for that too.
Yeah, well, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, that's... Is there nothing that he can't?
I never, it never. I always chuckle during This Is Howie Roseman. I always sing along. This is Howie Roseman. Yeah. So
one of my lasting impressions on the world.
Oh, not the only one.
I said one of. Yeah.
We were watching Kamu Hill the other day, and Emily started singing the song. So yeah.
Kamu Hill. He'll be the will. Yep, that was a good one. Okay. Anything else?
Nah, I'm really looking forward to doing some Super Bowl preview shows. That's the plan, right?
That's the plan.
What day are you guys going?
We go out Sunday so that we can be there for Monday of Media Day.
Gotcha. My flight's for Friday morning. Let me know, if you need me. I can.
I mean, we're going to need you at some point.
Well, I can show up at something in New Orleans if you want. We got to have dinner with Paul McCartney again, maybe.
Yeah, well,
or maybe we need to change it up this time.
Maybe we'll get Ringo.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. I mean, it was a loss last time, so we got to change something up. Yeah.
Go Birds! Sorry about your loss. All right. We have some super chats that we have that have since come in. Real Time with Prince Blue says, "Does the professor hate track because they run?" Good question.
I personally hate running. When I see people running, I'm like, oh my God, why are they running? It's just brutal. I loved playing ball sports. I loved playing basketball. I loved playing, squash, whatever. Like, and once my knees gave out and I couldn't do that anymore, people were like, well, you can still do the elliptical or whatever. Like anything that doesn't involve like competition or a ball or whatever.
I agree with that actually. I could play a game all day long.
Yeah.
But yeah, if it's just,
I actually did a semester. I did one season of track in high school doing long distance, and then I got offered a job as the baseball PA announcer, and I like quit right away. I was like, yeah, I'll do the baseball PA announcing. Like that's way better. So,
want to give us a taste of that?
Maybe some other time. Yeah, I did basketball as well. I was the basketball PA guy, which was a lot of fun. But yeah.
All right, I guess that'll do it for this episode and this week of shows on the PHLY Eagles podcast. We're going to be with you all day on Sunday. Kickoff show, halftime show, post-game show. Hit the like button, subscribe, comment, all that good stuff. Get your belated make this the best year ever wishes in for Julia. And that's going to do it. Good luck sort of handling your nerves over the next 48 hours. And we'll talk to you on Sunday. For all of us here, we thank you for watching and listening. We will talk to you later. And as always, we love you.
We all silly like the mayor.